All right, everyone. Okay, so I have been eagerly awaiting for this video. This is the legal mindset. I'm assuming this is going to be like his covering of the legal side of the Lego. How can we call it? A Lego Mormon mafia scandal. Lego mafia scandal. I don't even know how to call this nonsense because it's a crazy story. But I mean, can we just jump into it? Because I am just so excited to see this. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people ask him to make this video, and here it is.
Today, we're going brick by brick as we analyze the Bricks and Minifigs case and all of the law and crimes involved in this. Of course, this is the legal mindset where we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. Now, this is something that has slammed my inbox, and there are so many legal questions, different areas of both civil law, criminal law, regulatory law.
Is that like a, what is that? Is that, it kind of looks like a Papa ring from Ragnarok Online. But it's not. I can tell it's not because Papa rings have like a fully black eyes. But it reminds me a lot of the Papa rings.
I found this very fascinating. But
I don't know how to pronounce it. Papa rings. I don't.
It took me some time to put together this analysis, but this could not possibly be more perfect down my wheelhouse as a corporate attorney. I dealt with pretty much all of these issues. This is a content creator, Reckless Ben, who decided to take on the company of Bricks and Minifigs, which is a company selling Legos. Now, how this breaks down is essentially there was a consignment agreement with one Brian Mansell and the former franchise owner of a local branch, a local franchise of Bricks and Minifigs. And for those that don't know, franchises are not owned by the corporation. So as a corporate attorney, one thing we constantly would say, one thing that is very much true, is you will constantly shift the blame between corporate and the franchise. The corporation will say it's always the franchise fault, right? That's something you have to talk to the franchise owner, and the franchise owner will say, take it up with corporate. That's a corporate issue. That's in our contract, etc. So that game of back and forth is very, very, very much tried and true here, and we see that play out in this case.
Finally, she gave me an answer of why she can't help me.
You're supposed to be getting a hold of corporate.
Basically, what the manager's saying is that if someone did steal the Legos, it wasn't her, it was corporate. And this was corporate's side of the story.
You have to talk to the store owner.
Now, this all really goes down to what a consignment is, and really that's what you need to understand here. So
now, one thing that Asmongold pointed out, and I agree with Asmongold on this, is that the first thing that they should have done, like, you know, like when it got this complicated, like, oh, corporate, oh, the franchise owner, blah, 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 the first thing he should have done was like, okay. And then I decided to call my lawyer, right? Like, first thing that he should have done, right? But it's like, for some reason, right, he refused to call a lawyer. I don't know why. I don't understand why. And yeah, like, he just committed a lot of like low IQ mistakes, unfortunately. But let's see what our friend has to say here, right?
A consignment is essentially when one person is holding something on behalf of somebody else. In this case, it...
Now, okay, so one thing that I will say is a little bit fishy is this like approximated $200,000, because this is like the one thing that I think is a little bit fishy, okay? Because like, as far as I understand, they never agreed on a what's it called? They never agreed on a price for the Lego, right? Because what happened was that, like, oh, this is from a previous video. Let me delete that. So what happened, from what I understand, is that like they said like, oh, we're going to sell this. We're gonna sell like the Lego collection, and they're like, okay, this is a lot of Lego. I have to contact corporate to see like how much of a price they're going to fetch, and then I'm going to, call back to you, and then you would probably have like this back and forth where essentially it's like, oh, we're giving you this price, and then they say, I think this price is a little too low. Then they say, oh, but it's like a low price, but blah blah blah, and you have like a little bit of like this back and forth. Oh, I want 10 jelly beans, and then no, I only want 9 because I'm taking a risk, and blah 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 blah, 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 right? So like this 200,000, like for that reason, I think that this 200,000 is more speculative than de facto, and I feel like a lot of people have been treating it as if it's like de facto, right?
It was over $200,000. That's the disputed value. Now, Bricks and Minifigs, the franchise owners, they dispute that number, but the Mancells,
Yeah.
Reckless Ben, their number is 200K. So let's go with the higher number. So a lot of Star Wars Legos were very valuable. Now, consignments are what's called a security interest, and those are regulated by the Uniform Commercial Code, which has been adopted in Oregon. Under that code, the property remains under the superior title, meaning the ownership of the consignor, so the person that signed it over, even though it's being held by another person. The problem with this is the telltale maxim, possession is 9/10 of the law. So even though there's this agreement, the physical product is being held by somebody else.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder what they're...
Now, one thing that I will say, and it's like their story makes no sense, because what they're saying, just give me a second, right? Just give me a little bit of a second. I think that he showed the old owner for like a frame. If he did, it would be like too steep to find.
Is essentially...
So like Bomb's side of the story is that the store owner, right, the franchise owner, she, for some reason, for whatever reason, she bought it all. She bought all of it, and then she flew, like she sold the franchise, took all of it with her, and moved to Europe, and that they're trying to contact her to solve this issue, but she never, she disappeared. Now this is not true, because first of all, like, why would she like sell a store? Like, why would she like her business was probably not worth it, not worth $200,000. But if we're assuming that like that she's like this stupid, oh boy, gosh darn it. If we assume that she's like that stupid, gosh, I can't even fathom. Okay, if we are going to assume that she was this stupid, then how do you explain the social media? And by the way, I did confirm this personally, right? Because you can check some of Bomb's still existing social media pages, and you can confirm it for yourself. They were like selling like Star Wars products and advertising them, like rare Star Wars products, just to kind of rub it in the face of Brian, that like just being petty, really. So and they have done this after like after 2 years of the incident. So how come they still have like the merchandise 2 years after the old owner flew the country, stealing all of their merchandise. It makes no sense. It's impossible, right?
When one person is holding something on behalf of somebody else. In this case, it was over $200,000. That's the disputed value. Now, Bricks and Minifigs, the franchise owners, they dispute that number, but the Mancells, Reckless Ben, their number is 200K. So let's go with the higher number. So a lot of Star Wars Legos were very valuable. Now, consignments are what's called a...
By the way, what I'm doing here, like, it's like I know that like a lot of people are like nodding their heads, like, going like, "Oh my God, you don't even have to explain that, like, why it's a lie. It's obvious that it's a lie." I want to have a better argument as to like why, like, they are wrong, other than they are known liars. It's like a liar could rarely tell the truth, and you know, I am giving them the benefit of the doubt, even though they don't deserve it sometimes. Okay.
security interests, and those are regulated by the Uniform Commercial Code, which has been adopted in Oregon. Under that code, the property remains under the superior title, meaning the ownership of the consignor, so the person that signed it over, even though it's being held by another person. The problem with this is the telltale maxim, possession is 9/10 of the law. So even though there's this agreement, the physical product is being held by somebody else. So you have to wonder what they're going to do with that product. And in this case, something very, very wrong did indeed happen.
Almost mockingly, they've since flooded all of their social media.
Yeah, see? Like...
with tons of pictures of Star Wars Legos. At this point, it seems like they're just rubbing it in this family's face.
So what likely
I will try to find their Twitter page. Give me a second.
happened here, which is something that Ben's videos don't make clear.
Because like Ben Schneider's, what he said, it really seemed like he's right. Like it really seemed like they're trying to do it on purpose just to rub it in their face.
Is that after this consignment was made, essentially they quickly sold off that property to make cash. And once they made that cash, they either used that for operating expenses because the store wasn't making enough money. A lot of times stores will just make money on one high ticket item or one thing that sells well, and that's really what's keeping them afloat. They're really not making a lot of money. So hey, they go and liquidate this inventory, these Star Wars Legos, because hey, they belong to really somebody else and they're not going to come after us right away, and they may not have the resources, so we may be able to strong arm them. So they sell those off quickly, take the cash, and essentially flee. But essentially those Legos are mostly gone, and they've likely taken the profits from those Legos already. And the whole purpose of Ben's video, which is to get the Legos back, is likely never going to happen because those Legos are likely mostly gone and sold off for cash. That's a lot of times what will happen in these agreements, particularly when you have a party with more power, like a larger corporation or even a small business versus an individual. They can feel like, hey, you're not actually going to take me to court on this, and we're going to get away with this.
And the guy just looks at me, crosses his arms, and goes, "Let me tell you what's going to happen. If we go to court, we're going to drag this thing out so long, and you're going to end up spending so much more money than your collection is ever worth or what you ever would have gotten on it."
So despite retaining superior title, they took those away from them. Now, the franchise owner had several arguments here related to the consignment. First of all, they said, hey, we're going to keep these as store property because this consignment was illegal. We're not allowed to do consignments based on our corporate contract. Well, that's a whole separate problem.
Okay, I have bad news. I can't find the page. I think they might have wiped their Twitter because I can't find it. I think I did. Is this it? Let me see. Is this Star Wars? I found it. I found one of them. Yep, it's true. It's true. It's all true. Lego Star Wars. This is from January 19. Is this Star Wars? No. This is like the blah blah blah. Oh my god. You guys are like at this point they're just rubbing it in our faces, right? Lego Star Wars, rare stuff. Like this is 100% from that guy's. Like this is very likely from that guy's collection. Very likely. This is not, because it was like, remember, I don't know. Like this one, I don't know. It seems very modern. But like everything that is like Star Wars related has a very high chance of belonging to Brian's, I think, dad, right? So yeah, it's kind of like they're rubbing it on people's faces, really. You see? Yeah. Man, that's so evil. So evil.
Problem, and that would also put the people that originally engaged in that on the hook with individual liability, because they would have entered into an illegal contract, right? So that would have been on them for breach of contract, unjust enrichment, conversion. These are all civil claims. And by the way, I want to correct Reckless Ben. Throughout his video, he constantly uses civil crime and criminal crime. There's no such thing as a civil crime. That's not a thing. There's a civil claim, right? A civil claim is a claim for money, a claim for damages, but it's not a crime. If you are guilty of found to have liability in civil court, they find you guilty in civil court, you're liable for money, but that does not make you a criminal. And this is very important, particularly for Ben, because he uses this word recklessly, dare I say, as in his name, which may put him on the hook for defamation. He repeatedly calls people using criminal language interchangeably with civil language, and that's a problem, because when you accuse somebody of a crime, that can be defamatory, and that may put Ben on the hook for defamation for continually using criminal language. Now, the other thing that the franchise owners tried to get up...
Yeah, this is why Ben made a huge mistake by not having a lawyer with him at all times. Oh my goodness.
The hook with was saying they're not aware of the consignment. But in Ben's own videos, we saw them eventually confess to this.
When Brian first came in, we identified anything that was on that list that would have been his that Amanda didn't sell, and we set it aside. And it's still sitting there. We're happy to give you your stuff back.
Next is really the thing that they should have done with this, which is go after them for conversion, breach of contract, and unjust enrichment. Now, I know they make a big point of going to court is expensive, but what they don't mention, and my first thought, and the thought of almost all the lawyers that I talked to on this, when I talked to my colleagues on this, was find somebody who will work on contingency. Contingency means a percentage of the recovery. There are plenty of lawyers out there, in fact, I know many of them, that will take these cases based on a percentage of recovery, especially if there's strong backup, there's strong evidence to back this up and say, yeah, no, this is a good claim. We're going to take this. We're not going to require a massive retainer, and we're going to take a percentage of the return, right? Now, you might have to pay out 30% of the return, whatever, 25% of the return, some higher percent. But hey, they're willing to take the case, and you're willing to get a good portion of your money back from this eventual W. There's other issues that were brought up in this, and these are ones that Ben created himself. The first one is Ben's sham contract. Now, Ben himself eventually admits this is not a legal contract, but Ben tried to put together a contract that said that they could not trespass him from the property, and for every time they called the police, they owed him $5,000.
I made a contract with Amanda that says I, Ben Schneider...
Hey, so that was illegal? Isn't that like... Wait, I mean... sorry. So that was not a real contract. Isn't it illegal to forge a contract, though?
Be trespassed in all of these legal words for any circumstance whatsoever and for literally any reason, including a clause that says for every police officer she calls on me, she owes me $5,000.
Now, This is completely unenforceable 100%. You cannot have a contract executed by deception. And using a routine package delivery to get a signature doesn't work, because that's what we call fraud in the inducement.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking. Like, cause it's like this was a mistake. There's no hiding it, right? Like this was like such a stupid mistake, because it's like you can't just do that, because if you could do that, then everyone would be doing it, right? Like, it's like, and it, on a court of law, this is going to look really bad for Ben, really bad, because it sets him as a scammer. It makes him look like a scammer. It really does. I am absolutely on Ben's side here, because what the hell? But this was a huge mistake. Huge mistake, unfortunately.
Inducing someone, you're tricking someone into a contract. There is no mutual assent. Now, once again, he brings up this duty to read law, but that doesn't apply at all for something where you have no idea you're signing a contract. You think you're signing for a delivery, and you're actually signing a contract. There's no mutual assent, mutual agreement that, hey, we're entering into a contract here. You are tricking somebody. So no, that does not work at all. The other thing is terms in there like you can't call the police, you can't trespass. Those are both unconscionable, and they cannot be contracted. You can never have a contract, ever. And I've written thousands and thousands of contracts as a corporate attorney. It's something I am probably the master at writing contracts. There's no way to get immunity from crimes. Trust me, people. If we could contract out of crimes, lawyers would do it in a heartbeat. But you cannot do that at all. You cannot say you cannot call the police on me. You cannot say you can't charge me with trespass. That's not going to happen ever. So that's not a thing in a contract. Don't ever try to do that in a contract. Yeah, continuing on, Ben also had to see some criminal acts that while you may frame them as pranks, they were criminal acts.
Go ahead and leave, and I'm going to ask you one more time. Last time.
So after being told you need to leave, you're getting into issues of criminal trespass. A person does not have to give you a good reason to leave the property. They simply need to ask you to leave, and you should leave that property, or you're committing trespass. Now, one thing he does bring up is, I was just trying to serve them this lawsuit. I was trying to have this good faith conversation. Well, that's completely bunk, because all of that could have been achieved through a professional process server. Now, he did have a process server with him. The problem was he was there. And actually, under the relevant local law, it says if...
So he was not supposed to be there? It was just supposed to be her? Wait, but why didn't she told him that? Did he insisted? I mean, to be honest, they didn't even get to leave the car. But I mean, that's a bit weird.
If you are an interested party, if you are somebody who is involved in a lawsuit as a plaintiff, as a defendant, as somebody who's interested in that lawsuit, you cannot function as the process server. So because he was suing them in small claims court, he is not a valid person to act as a process server or to be there when they're serving process. I know why he was there, but it actually worked against his case and ended up getting him in trouble. He should have left it to that process server. If he wanted to stick a body cam on the process server or something like that, he might have been able to do that, depending on the consent laws there. But that said, he might be able to record it, but not be there himself physically, because I think that is where the issues come up, and that's where the trespassing comes up. You also have potential disorderly conduct, which comes in for many of his pranks that he was pulling off.
And we did it. And the sign is way too small. What the heck, ChatGPT?
Disorderly conduct, which comes in for many of...
Okay, but to be honest, this is disorderly conduct. This is not vandalizing, right?
His pranks that he was pulling off.
And we did it. And the sign is way too small. What the heck, ChatGPT?
And targeted residential picketing, as well as several likely local ordinance violations. Remember, there's always going to be some local law that you're violating. That's always going to happen. The other thing is stalking. This comes up pretty clearly if you look at their behavior and you think about this through a lens of, well, what if these were just innocent people, even if they're not, right? You look at it as stalking because it's conduct causing reasonable fear for your safety or emotional distress. Typically, it has to be 2 or more actions, but they had a multitude of actions that they recorded in 4K of them going around, recording people, going to their houses, etc. That's going to look like stalking. That's not going to look good.
Okay.
So you've got all of these things that can come against Ben potentially. Whether or not he can say he had this imprimatur, this kind of slight reason of serving that lawsuit, he didn't legally need to be the one to do that. And one thing that he does repeatedly here is act as if he's Mansell's legal representative. But he's not really in an official legal role. He's not their attorney. He's not a trustee in their case. He's not necessarily a process server, because he might not be qualified as a party to those small claims lawsuits. So he really doesn't have a role to play here in that. He's kind of creating this role, or he thinks he had this role to play as a representative, where he really doesn't. His main role, which he did work very effectively, was drawing publicity. The other big thing is his lottery.
I want everyone's attention. We're doing a Lego raffle. This Lego set is worth $1,000.
Don't tell me this is illegal too.
In Oregon, the lottery is highly regulated, and he went through a lot of steps and a lot of rigmarole saying he set up an official lottery.
All you need to know is that I put a lot of work into making sure that this is a legal, legit raffle.
Now, despite him saying this was a real lottery, this would likely be treated as regulators as a prank. And I know this because I've worked on actual lotteries and giveaways when working with companies for several years. But if you did analyze this as an actual lottery, Ben might actually be in trouble, because in this case, he knew when he started this that the Legos were in the possession of somebody else and he could not give those away. So from the beginning, he knew it was a fraud. He knew that he could not go in and get those Legos because he'd already been denied. Ultimately, he says he paid.
Well, it's Jover, boys. It's Jover. Like, we tried, we prayed, but I guess our boy was too retarded. At least he got the GoFundMe. Like maybe he gonna at least Brian is getting his money, like because of the GoFundMe. But yeah, I think our boy Ben Schneider just oof, yeah. Man, that was just
paid out the lottery because he felt like it was the right thing to do, but that is actually not the answer. He paid out the lottery just to keep himself out of actually getting in trouble here and actually sent to jail. Because if you end up running a real lottery knowing that you can't give somebody the prize, well, you're still going to be on the hook there whether or not you like it. So you might have to pay out that value of that item that you were going to give away, even if you're not going to give it away. So that's where you're going with that. So I would not be so flippant to run in and go start pretending to run a lottery and have people going out there thinking you can just run a scam lottery anytime. I think that's something that people need to be cautious of, and Ben was a little reckless with running that one. So what is the actual professional approach that should have been had here? Well, first of all, I think from the beginning, he should have used lawyers and process servers. Don't tag along to film. That actually can violate the local law. That actually can keep you from having an effective service of process, meaning giving someone the papers and starting that lawsuit. The other thing they could do is they could have filed reports with the regulatory entities, the BBB, the people that regulate the franchise owners, and support those by evidence. Submit those in to the people that regulate them and have them also come in and help come down on these people. The other thing is, they could have brought in at some point a professional mediator or an arbitrator, somebody that could come as a go-between that's seen as neutral, seen as somebody who's going to be reasonable and not just be doing it for the clout, for the video, YouTube video, etc. Also, he did do a smart thing. I will give Ben credit that by itemizing and splitting things out for the small claims, by breaking those into smaller amounts and then assigning those to different people, that is permissible. People do break things out and assign them, and that is permissible. But they could have...
Out of all the things, that was the thing that he did that was actually smart. This is why we need this man, I would never have guessed.
also gone to get an injunction for a return of the property. And that would have been a very logical way to try to get that back really quickly, or at least prevent the sale of the existing inventory that they might still have and be trying to sell. The other thing is, you really can't engage in what we call in the law self-help. And this video is all about vigilante self-help. It's about a YouTuber, a person who took things into his own hands, and there is a limit to that, because eventually it can constitute harassment. And particularly when you run into a small town, whether it's the Mormon mafia or not, you are going to get pushback from the PD.
Walking a very dangerous line, which can get you end up alone.
Yeah.
You could end up in jail in Utah when you're from Cali.
Okay.
Not worth it, right?
Yeah.
We play differently here.
And while what they did was certainly wrong and definitely needs to be investigated, there's a point at which you need to remove yourself from that, step back, and let the process take over. Let people who are professionals go in there and handle this, not you and your YouTube boys. In judgment, Brian Mansell's case is very sympathetic. I have a lot of sympathy in the Bricks and Minifigs case for what happened from them stealing from old people. That is absolutely wrong.
Disgusting.
And he was wronged here in his consignment agreement. He entered into an agreement and got shafted. And this does happen in business all the time. However, all of this could have been avoided likely if a lawyer willing to work on contingency would have found the Mansells before Reckless Ben. If they just got a professional in there, they could have handled this much more quietly than this. Now, maybe it wouldn't have the publicity it has, and that's something to be said about YouTubers covering this for publicity, but at a certain point, it passed the line where there's things that are happening that are indeed criminal and possibly defamatory. The other thing that has come up here is the local police need to be investigated, and that goes with
for real.
Things here that
Ooh, yes,
shady,
please.
involving potential excessive force, illegal stops, searches, bias, body cam footage destruction. There needs to be investigation by the state coming down, looking into that, saying, what are these local PDs doing? Because this is not following their procedures. I will agree with that part. So on that part, definitely the police are in the wrong, and it's a gross misuse of police resources when they can be used really anywhere else better than this. It also is not the job of the police to enforce the civil side. And the fact that they're willing to do things for their buddies and not willing to do things for these out-of-town YouTubers, while it may not be surprising, walk into any small town in America. I've lived in small towns in America and worked with local police. Yes, they will side with people that live there over outsiders, mainly because they're paying taxes and you're not. But beyond that, at a certain point, the PD are going to push back, and you should remove yourself from that and let the legal process take over. So while Ben may have done some good work for publicity and for people watching this, at this point, he's likely liable for defamation and certainly on the hook for several potential crimes. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below about the Bricks and Minifigs case, and I will catch you on.
Okay, so please, as always, leave a like. Should I subscribe? Sure. We'll give you a subscribe. This video deserves a subscribe. Leave a comment. Support the original creators. So our friend here was a bit of like a harbinger of bad news. I am going to be the harbinger of good news. Okay, so yeah, it looks like our boy Ben. He may have like speedrun his way to jail, and that sucks, right? That sucks because he had good intentions, but he was a little bit too reckless. Okay, now with that being said, let's talk about the good things that he made. He exposed a nefarious company that was valorized, that was like upheld as a good, like, because BOM was like the biggest, was basically like the GameStop of the Lego community, right? No longer, right? Now they are like the what is like the what? They're like the Epic Store of Lego, of the Lego community. They're now the laughing stock, right? So Ben brought a lot of attention to the illegal atrocities that they were doing. Okay, he may have conducted what will be the beginning of a huge investigation on the Fort Police Department, right? Which is so crooked. They're so evil and so stupid. Like, I don't care what is the reason, right? I don't care if it's because of taxes. I don't care if it's because they're Mormons. I don't care if it's because they're being bribed. It's illegal. You can't do that, right? And at the end of the day, you know, that GoFundMe money is probably going to Brian. So at the end of the day, he is finally going to get his money back. And the people involved with Bomb, you know, like I think mainly Joshua Johnson. I feel like he made himself the main villain, even though he's not. He's not really the main villain. He's one of the villains. But these people are now tarnished, right? So was like, it's like it may like in a way it's kind of like Ben Schneider, like what is likely going to happen. I am not guys, I'm not going to feed you false hopes. I think he's going to jail, okay? But it was like a sacrifice. He sacrificed himself for us, for the people, you know. So, yeah, you know, let's pray. Let's pray for Ben, right? In fact, let's pray for John, for Joshua. Let's pray for what was his name, Brian, and Brandon, and the CEO of Bomb, and what was her name, Amanda. Let's pray for all of these people, right? You know, different prayers, right? I guess like for the people who are in the wrong, let's pray for them to convert, and for the people who are in the right, let's pray for their. We can also pray for them to convert, actually, and also for them to, you know, for God to take care of them, right? In fact, let's pray both of these things for both of these parties, right? Let's wish them well. Let's wish everyone well, okay? Let's not be vindictive about this and insane. Let's be reasonable and faithful, okay? So, thank you so very much for watching this video. I loved reacting to this video. That was so informative, right? It's not what I was expecting. It was really not what I was expecting. I thought it would be like a lot more positive, but oh well, you know. He was honest, and I appreciate that. Thank you so very much for watching this. I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.